Jai Swaminarayan. Welcome to PANKAJ SHUKLA'S English Academy. Today I am going to teach you SS Chapter 2, First World War and Russian Revolution. Colonialism in Asia. After strengthening its grip over India, England expanded its empire to Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Singapore, and Malaysia. England entered China also, but due to opium trade between England and China, there were wars in 1839 to 1842, which came to be known as Opium War. Opium is a kind of drug. In history, China lost this war and thereby lost 5 of its ports to England and could carry on their trade and thus expanded their empire. Now, colonialism in Africa. The Dutch established its colony for the first time at the end of 15th century in South Africa. King Leopold of Belgium seized the vast province of Congo and established his rule. England established its colonies in Egypt. France established its colonies in Tunisia, Morocco, and West Africa province. Italy captured the African provinces around the Red Sea. Now see the chapter First World War. The factors that cause First World War. The First World War began on 1st August 1914. Germany had defeated France in the Sedan War, because of which France had to sign the Frankfurt Treaty in 1871 and lost 2 provinces, Lorraine and Alsace, to Germany. Thus, the Frankfurt Treaty itself was the cause of the First World War. Remember, children, Frankfurt Treaty. First reason, economic factors. England had established its vast empire in Asia and Africa in the 19th century. Germany started supplying cheaper goods in comparison to England and France. The Afro-Asian, Africa and Asian markets that England and France dominated and there were thus broken up by Germany. Second point is militarism. Military force was necessary, so Japan, Italy and Germany compulsory military training had started. Production of weapons was increased under the pretext of self-defense. Groupism, secret treaties. One side was the group of Germany, Austria, Hungary, Bulgaria and Turkey, while on the other side was the group of England, France, Russia and Japan. Feeling of fierce nationalism. Love for own nation and hatred for the other nations was increased. So the German chief Kaiser William was the other originator of nationalism and colonialism, because of which France had to sign the Frankfurt Treaty and lost 2 provinces and Lorraine and Alsace to Germany. Thus Frankfurt Treaty role of newspapers. The newspapers of the European nations aroused so much of hatred among people with their mutual derogatory, provocative, exaggerated and false writ up by spitting venom against rival nations that the rulers of the respective nations could not even make efforts for establishing peace and harmony. Philosophy about war. The policy of war is welfare took root in Europe. The German writer Trotsky published maxims like only mighty deserved to live and war is the national need. Nietzsche, the German writer, expressed war as a sacred work. Immediate cause: the Prince of Austria and his wife were assassinated by being shot at by a member of the Serbian terrorist organization Black Hand. Austria blamed Serbia for the involvement in the act and gave an ultimatum to hand over the culprit to Austria within 48 hours. Serbia declared its ignorance in the matter. Without listening to anything from Serbia, Austria declared war on Serbia. The First World War had begun with this. Events of the First World War. In the First World War, 24 nations supported the Allied nation and 4 nations supported the Axis nation. Germany made noteworthy victories in Europe. It ruined the French army. In 1917, the Russian Revolution started. So Russia withdrew from the war. So Germany was very strong at this time. It managed to drown an American steamer, Lusitania, in which 147 American soldiers died. America joined the Allied nation for the war in April 1917. With that, countries like Panama, Greece, Cuba, China, and Siam joined the Allied nations. German army could not withstand the American troops, so the whole position of the war changed. Bulgaria in September 1918, Turkey and Austria in October 1918 joined the Allied nation. The German leader Kaiser abdicated his position and ran away. Germany surrendered to the Allied nation and signed a ceasefire, stop war treaty, and the war came to an end. Effects of the First World War. Immediate effects: destruction of man and material. Approximately 6.5 crore people took part in the war. At least 1 crore died, about 2 crore were injured, and 70 lakh were rendered permanently handicapped. More number of people died because of starvation and other forms of killing and epidemics that broke out after the war. The total expenditure was quite high. Social change. During the war, since majority of the men of all nations were on the war front, women shouldered the responsibility of the family and occupation. They stepped out of their homes and successfully took over the responsibility in the different professional fields. So problems like scarcity, unemployment, starvation, strikes, lockouts raised its head. Versailles Treaty. At the end of the First World War, the unconditional surrender of Germany in front of the Allied nations brought an end to the World War. Then the Allied nation undertook the peace process in Paris, in which some 58 commissions were organized. The agreement made with Germany during the Paris peace process was made in the Mirror Palace at Versailles. The American President Woodrow Wilson, British Prime Minister Lord George, French President Clemenceau, and Italian President Orlando played an important role in this treaty. A war fine of £6.5 billion was imposed on Germany. It had to give away the Ruhr region of France. Its Rhine River had to be open for international sea route. Long-term effects. There was a feeling of revenge in signing the treaty with the nations that were defeated in the war. Socialist Russia was not given a place in the League of Nations. America did not join the League of Nations. That's why it can be said that the reason for the Second World War was in the peace process of the First World War itself. Second part of this chapter is Russian Revolution in 1917. The Russian had been oppressed and suppressed by the king called Tsar of Russia. The Russian Tsar means king, who inherited the position, were all dictators and enjoyed uncontrolled rule over people. The Tsars were so cruel and pitiless on people that anyone demanded for any rights, he was tortured, suppressed, and severely punished or condemned to be sent to the bone chilling and dead cold of Siberia. Under the leadership of Father Gapon, a large rally was taken out to the Tsar's residence Winter Palace on 22nd January 1905, and that day was Sunday. And these people were unarmed, while some had the Tsar's picture in hand with caption like "Long live the little white lord of Russia" written on it. The Tsar's army opened fire on these innocent people, because of which thousands of innocent people died, and snow in Petersburg, where the Tsar's palace was situated, turned red with blood, and this day is known as Bloody Sunday in history. On 8th March 1970, the oppressed workers of the Petrograd called for a strike. After the fall of Tsardom, the power fell into the hands of Kerensky led Menshevik group. Majority except Lenin. Everyone in Russia was happy with the fall of the Tsar, but Lenin believed in the importance of laborers as propagated by Karl Marx, while the Menshevik group believed in the importance of the middle class. As a result, Lenin instigated the Bolshevik against Menshevik majority and minority party in November 1970, declared the final revolution and got the power in his hands. This came to be known as the Socialist Bolshevik Revolution. Thus, 300 years of old Tsardom came to an end. For the first time, Russia was without the king called Tsar. Last part of this chapter, the League of Nations. The American President Woodrow Wilson had contributed substantially in the establishment of the League of Nations. The 14 points suggested by Woodrow Wilson were presented during the Paris peace process on 10th January 1920. The League of Nations was formed. Aims of the League of Nations: to maintain international peace and security. Every nation to respect the unity and integrity of the other nations. to give up the policy of war, to develop international relations, to solve international dispute peacefully through negotiation or mediation. If any nation ignores the League of Nations or its mediation, it would be declared as a rebel nation. Jai Swaminarayan.